Well, happy Saturday, everyone. I want to start off by thanking you all for the amazing discussion and sharing from week one. Wow, already into this course and already a great discussion about honor and integrity and friendship and trust. Thank you for the way you've engaged this early stage of the discussion, kind of out of the blue. I'm so looking forward to the next 4 weeks with you and where you all will take me on this amazing journey. Good for you. It's great work. I'm looking forward to reading your first papers. But before we get any further into that, I want to start off with this kind of permission. Since the coming week is Thanksgiving week, and all of us are probably going to be busy with that, whether we want to or not, I want to give you permission to take a breather by letting you know a couple of things. One, let's try to, without diminishing the significance of the discussion that you've been engaged in, let's see if we can get that discussion going as early as possible and finished as early as possible. I don't know how that discussion finishes. In a way, it just continues from week to week, but the basic minimums of the discussion for this week, we might want to pay a little more attention to. Second, I want to give you a little bit more time on the assignments, the deadline for the rest of work. There is more to do this week. You'll see that for the next few weeks that you got off a little easy week one, but starting with week two, there's more work to do. So I want to give you an extra 2 days for the deadline for the rest of that work. There's more to do this week. I don't want to take away from your family planned events. Of course, you can stay on your schedule, and I'll keep checking in on you. I won't ignore you. But if you need the extra time or just want the extra time, I'll accept for week two only your written work until 11:59 on Tuesday. Feel free to ignore it. May be better for you to stay on schedule, but I'd hate to ruin your festivities by making you go to your room and do your homework. I do want to remind you, though, continuing to talk about the discussions, I do want to remind you that the ADP rule for online discussion requires a minimum of 3 entries for each discussion. One initial, roughly 250-word response to the questions, and then a couple of other comments related to what others have said, or to something I've said, or sharing a new insight after you've read what others have said and had further time to think about what we're discussing. Some of you have written some really remarkable first entries, and I've enjoyed engaging you about those. But make sure that you follow up with your conversation among each other. And please make sure that you normally stay on time with that schedule, although I have given you this little vacation, so to speak, for week two. Also be aware that a brief acknowledgement of what somebody else has said is really not a substantive response. I call those verbal high fives. I'm looking for substantive commentary on these posts. Thank you. One other logistical note before I move on to week two. For those of you who have already submitted your first reflection papers and may be wondering why you have not heard from me, my practice is to wait until they're all in, so that I'm grading all of the assignments at the same time and in the same mood. It's fair to you, actually. This week, we move on into week two. We consider another hero of the faith. This one is Oscar Romero. Oscar is a 20th century hero and, spoiler alert, a martyr from El Salvador. Check out the information online about him that I've put on Moodle, supplemental learning resources and activities. It may help you to have some more context for what's going on in the film. I do want to point out that the 3 folks we're talking about, Henry, Thomas, and Oscar, are all real people living real lives, trying hard to figure it out. just like you and me. Romero's story takes place in a very difficult time in El Salvador. Actually, El Salvador is still having a very difficult time. It is a time, as you will see, you watch the whole movie, that we in the U.S. had some real interest in there. Not necessarily positive interests. You may have heard about that, but the questions remain pretty much the same. I think they are basic human questions that always bring us back to this basic fundamental human question. How then shall I live? Each of the persons that we are looking at is confronted by that question. This is a question we all deal with, right? I believe certain things. My character is a certain set of values, and the world I live in is a certain kind of world. In light of those three things, or my understanding of them at least, how do I live with integrity? Looking forward to your discussion about Romero and the choices he makes, and maybe how they're similar to and different from the choices that Beckett makes. We also add another text into the course this week, Anne Lamont's Traveling Mercies. This is a collection of essays and reflections of one person's real-life struggles and triumphs, defeats as well, but triumphs ultimately. There's a brief reflection essay required for this book as well, but the purpose of assigning this book is the same as the reason we assigned these films for you to look at. Often considering how another person lives in the world, attempting to live with dignity and integrity can help us understand ourselves and our world and our struggles better. I love Annie Lamott. I think you will as well. We also begin with week 2 a series of life mapping activities. Read through the directions on this very carefully. Life mapping is an important self-reflection and self-assessment tool. We will look in this mapping process at our life in 3 parts. The first, due week 2, is the simplest one. What are the key events, locations, places, schools, homes, churches, and so forth where I have lived to date? Key is the key word. Not everything is going to get listed on this, but those things that you consider to be formative in your life. It's not everything, so consider only those that carry real significance in your life. Next week, we'll work on relationships, and the following week on spirituality, 3 major components of our lives. By the way, I've posted a picture of a life events example from my own life mapping. Feel free to look at that. You're not obligated to follow that. Be creative. Find a way to map your own life that is meaningful to you. Finally, we will consider significant thinkers who have been highly influential in the development of the ways we think about the world, humans, God, gods, and life, the world, the flesh, and the devil. The first 2 for this week, week 2, are Aristotle and Plato. Although they lived millennia ago, many consider them to be still 2 of the most foundationally influential persons who have ever lived. You will choose one of those, Aristotle or Plato. Do the research using the resources identified for you, provided for you in Moodle, and answer some key questions about them. Again, follow those directions and it will work out just fine. Well, enough of me today. Again, let me encourage you to direct any questions or concerns you have directly to me. My life, like yours, is very busy and at times very complicated, but I will always try to respond as quickly and helpfully as possible. If your question is urgent, feel free to text me at the number provided on the information page, but remember to let me know who you are and that you're connected to this course. So, blessings on you as we continue this journey, and next week, have a very happy Thanksgiving. Talk to you again. Bye-bye.